On the morning of the 5th of July, 2000 of the 17th year, a man is sitting in front of a laptop in his villa in Bangkok. On the internet, he is known only under the pseudonym Alpha02. This man is a multimillionaire. He lives a luxurious life and drives expensive cars. He feels absolutely safe in Thailand. But suddenly, near his house, he hears a loud bang. It turns out that a woman was driving by in her Toyota Camry and accidentally crashed into the gate of this house. A man runs outside to find out what happened, and this action of his will lead to serious consequences in the future. The woman driving is an undercover agent of the Royal Thai Police, and the investigators of the FBI and the US Drug Enforcement Administration have been waiting for this moment for several years. The law enforcement agencies of 7 countries brought this day as close as they could, and today they plan to finally end the hunt for the king of the Darknet. White journalist Andy Greenberg published an article in 6 parts about the hunt for the king of the Darknet. In addition, there is a podcast, Darknet Diaries, about Operation Bayonet, which will be described later. Chapter 1. The Struggle for the Throne. The beginning of 2010's years. The dark web is gaining momentum. Promises of anonymity and privacy on the internet are beginning to attract more and more people. There is also a new form of payment for goods and services that are not controlled by the authorities. It has become easier than ever for criminals to sell their goods online on a massive scale. With the advent of the Darknet, the game between criminals and law enforcement agencies began, which did not stop for a second, and continues to this day. At that time, the most popular illegal market in the Darknet is the Silk Road Mole. The platform was launched in February of the 2011 year and gained incredible popularity. More than 100,000 people bought drugs on this site, but just 2.5 years later, the site administrator was arrested, and the mole was permanently disabled. Using the example of this site, law enforcement agencies decided to declare their fight against illegal actions on the Darknet, and the site administrator was sentenced to life imprisonment. However, this business is too profitable to intimidate other market participants. Therefore, after the closure of the mole forces, the number of Darknet markets increased dramatically. All of them began to fight for leadership in this area. Exactly 35 days after the closure of the forces of the mole 2.0 were opened. The site existed for less than a year. Evolution has become another popular trading platform, comparable in size to both Silk Roads. To buy a commodity currency, it was necessary to deposit Bitcoin to an account inside the platform itself. This scheme resembled an escrow account on the dark web, and as soon as the buyer confirmed receipt of the goods, money was transferred from the platform to the seller. Evolution operators received huge sums of money every day, and at some point, they decided to simply steal all the funds transferred by users, committing a so-called exit scam. Agora became another worthy successor of the original mole force, but its founders voluntarily disabled the site in August of the 2015 year. However, by that time, the Darknet business was becoming too busy with arrests, exit fraud, voluntary withdrawals of funds, and constant hacking. All of this went into the hands of a new emerging Darknet market called AlphaBay. In July 2000 of the 14th year, a man who calls himself Alpha02 on the network begins work on creating AlphaBay. And just 5 months later, he manages to successfully launch his platform. Initially, only the data of stolen bank cards were sold on the site. But AlphaBay is quickly starting to expand its range. In addition to maps, sections with drugs, weapons, and malicious software appear here. And a little later, a section with services appears, among which, for example, money laundering. At the same time, the rules of the site strictly prohibit 3 categories of goods and services: child abuse, contract killings, and theft of information about Russian bank accounts. Apparently, Alpha02 does not want to contact Russian law enforcement agencies. Or perhaps he is trying to pretend to be Russian in order to mislead investigators. The site itself works similarly to Amazon. It is easy to use, It has search functions, distribution by sections, filters. And the user can pay with 3 different cryptocurrencies at once: Bitcoin, Monero, or Ethereum. It is assumed that this will provide even greater anonymity. AlphaBay even offers users a so-called toggle switch, in which purchases are eroded by combining transactions from several unrelated people. The platform works stably and begins to dominate the dark web. While other trading platforms appear and disappear, AlphaBay continues to gain strength. The number of users is growing rapidly. Less than a year has passed since its foundation. More than 200,000 buyers and 40,000 sellers have been registered on the site. By the 2017 year, more than 300,000 products are presented on the AlphaBay website, and the daily turnover exceeds $500,000. At the same time, AlphaZero earns on each transaction, receiving a share of 2 to 4%. He becomes a multimillionaire. A whole team is working on AlphaBay. AlphaZero has a representative named Snake. There are several moderators who are engaged in settling disputes between buyers and sellers, and a public relations manager. Given the explosive success of the site, its founder decides to move away from everyday activities. He renames himself, and from that moment becomes just an administrator. Admin. And all interaction with the management is carried out only through Snake. As the AlphaZero division is removed, American researchers are paying more and more attention to his true identity. Who is the powerful mastermind behind the platform that controls the dark side of the internet? A large-scale hunt begins, which will cover the entire globe and last for several years. Chapter 2: Who is the king of the Darknet? American researchers are trying to figure out where the AlphaBay servers are located. Having access to the servers, they will have the opportunity to either permanently close the platform or secretly infiltrate it, and then go to the administrator. IP addresses provide information about the location of users and servers. In closed networks such as Tor, requests to websites are routed through a chain of random servers scattered around the world. This routing cannot be tracked. Thus, the search for servers, operators, and sellers is deliberately complicated. For this reason, American investigators have to go the other way. They start browsing the platform and buying drugs anonymously in the hope that one of the sellers will make a mistake. It may also happen that the identity of a certain dealer will help to establish the packaging of the goods or even the postage stamp on it. In this case, the dealer can be arrested. However, he remains just a small fish. Dealers are constantly appearing and disappearing. But investigators are interested in AlphaZero too. But it seems that the creator of AlphaBay is taking every precaution. He knows all the rules of the game, and every attempt by law enforcement agencies to trace the administrator fails. This continues until December 2016 year. Robert Miller sits at his desk in Fresno, California. He works for DEA, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. He's working on the AlphaBay case, and until today it's been a pretty thankless job. But suddenly, an anonymous sender email appears in his mailbox. It seems that AlphaZero made a fatal mistake in the early days of AlphaBay's existence. Every new user who registered on the site in the first days received a welcome email. The sender's email address was visible in the metadata of this welcome email. Although the error was almost instantly corrected, the anonymous informant managed to save one of these letters. Perhaps the informant was the first client of the AlphaBay site, or perhaps the administrator of another site, who thus wanted to drown a competitor. In any case, he silently watched while AlphaBay grows and develops in the dark web. He waited, and then passed the email to the investigator from the Drug Enforcement Administration. The sender's real address was the following: pimp_alex_91, dog@hotmail.com. This email was a real breakthrough in the case for Miller and his colleagues. Thanks to the email address, investigators found photos of Alex published in the 2008 and 2009 years on Skyrock.com. This is a social network in French. Alex also added a link to an old profile on a dating site. The profile lists Trois-Rivières as his hometown. This city is located in the south of the Canadian province of Quebec. According to the profile, Alex was 17 years old at the time, so the number 91 in his email address may be the year of his birth. In this case, Alex was 23 years old at the time of AlphaBay's launch. Alpha02 also appears on the technical forum in French. In the 2008 year on this forum, he explained how to remove the virus from the image. At the bottom of the post, the email address already known to us is indicated, as well as his full name, Alexander Cazes. So, the investigators got his name. But where is Alexander Cazes now? They found his PayPal account, where he also indicated an email address. With the help of his LinkedIn account, investigators also learn that he works as a freelance software developer and also runs his own technology company called IBX Technologies. In the social network, investigators also found the profile of his Thai fiancée. Apparently, the Canadian lives in Thailand. The evidence leads investigators to the country's capital, Bangkok. With the help of Thai investigators, the investigation team manages to identify 3 real estate objects belonging to Alexander Cazes in the country. One house is located in a gated residential complex where Alpha02 lives with his wife. In addition, there is another house and a mansion worth $3 million on the outskirts of Bangkok. He also has a holiday home in Phuket and is in the process of buying another villa in Cyprus. Investigators are beginning to follow this man. The multimillionaire lifestyle includes owning multiple cars. Cazes likes to drive around Bangkok in his Lamborghini. Agents are following him, tracking his routes and his iPhone. While Cazes lives in a beautiful house with his wife, he invites numerous mistresses to one of his houses in Bangkok. Investigators called this place a bachelor's den. Cazes is an active participant in the forum for pickups, where men share tips on how to succeed with women. Under the nickname Romeo, Cazes publishes articles about conservative family values and leads a quasi-sexist blog about his successful sex life. Otherwise, his daily life is quite normal and rather unremarkable for the king of the dark web. He gets up early, checks his social media accounts, works, and is often at home. From time to time, he attends language courses or goes out for dinner with his wife. Based on this information, law enforcement agencies are carefully planning his arrest. In June 2017, a few weeks before the attack, several agents are sitting in the lobby of a 5-star hotel in Bangkok. Suddenly, Cazes appears in the same hotel. He parks his Porsche Panamera at the entrance and casually walks through the lobby right next to the agents. There are thousands of hotels in Bangkok, but did the agents make a mistake? Has the king of the Darknet outsmarted them? Cazes sits down at a table a few meters away from the agents. They had never been so close to him before. But by an incredible coincidence, Cazes is in this place for a business meeting. And at the moment, none of those present suspects that in just a month, Cazes will no longer be alive. Chapter 3. Operation Bayonet. AlphaBay is currently the largest illegal darknet market in the world. But the competition is high. A similar Hans market is rapidly developing in Europe, and this fact does not give the European authorities peace of mind. Dutch law enforcement agencies discovered Hans market servers thanks to a tip from a security specialist. These servers are located in a data center in the Netherlands. A unique opportunity opens up for the investigators. They monitor servers, copy data, and view countless entries in the chats of the site operators. Investigators find out that the operators are Germans who, most likely, continue to live in Germany. Together with the German Federal Criminal Police, the Dutch want to take Hans market under their control. However, suddenly Hansa disappears from the Dutch servers. Most likely, the administrators found that their data from their servers had been copied. Investigators also find several Bitcoin addresses in operators' chats. They start tracking transactions until the Bitcoins end up on the Dutch crypto exchange. Investigators contact the exchange and request data. It turns out that Bitcoins are going to Lithuania. Together with the local authorities, the Germans and the Dutch are trying to find new servers. This time, the authorities want to strike. But then something unexpected happens. The FBI informs its European colleagues of its plans to arrest Alpha-02 and close AlphaBay. Thus, Operation Bayonet is born. The operation is led by the FBI and the D and involves the cooperation of law enforcement agencies in a total of 7 countries. Europol is also taking part in the operation. The FBI is instructed to wait for the liquidation of AlphaBay until the Dutch, in cooperation with the Germans, take control of Hans. If AlphaBay is liquidated, Hans will be flooded with new buyers and sellers. This is often found in the Darknet if the site is closed or if there is an exit fraud. Buyers and dealers simply move to another location. But this time, users are going to a site that has been taken under control by law enforcement agencies. With such data, the Dutch could convict thousands of unsuspecting criminals. And this is just a tidbit for investigators. Alexander Cazes doesn't suspect anything. He continues to drive around Bangkok in his Lamborghini, writes articles on his favorite forum, and cheats on his wife. The first stage of the operation is successfully completed in Lithuania on the 20th of June, 2017 year. Dutch law enforcement agencies are taking control of the Lithuanian Data Management Center. At the same time, German authorities are arresting 2 operators of the Hans market in Siegen and Cologne. The operators did not have time to warn anyone before the arrest. And now the Hans market is under the control of the Dutch. And no one on the dark web knows about it. We are moving to Bangkok on the 5th of July, 2017 year. A warrant has been issued for Cazes arrest. Today, the Royal Thai Police, the D and the FBI will arrest the AlphaBay administrator after more than 2 years. Alpha-02 can finally be neutralized. A gray Toyota Camry is driving along a dead-end road towards the house of Cazes with an agent of the Royal Thai Police at the wheel. She tells the guard that she took a wrong turn. The woman allegedly wants to turn around, but again, allegedly accidentally touches the gate of the case house a little. The uproar lures Cazes out of the house. He drops everything and immediately runs out into the street. This moment is very important. In the best-case scenario, at the time of arrest, his laptop should remain unlocked. If the hard drives are locked and encrypted, it will be much more difficult for the authorities to gain access to AlphaBay. Case leaves the house and approaches the Toyota. He has a cell phone in his hands. Suddenly, several policemen run out in the direction of Cazes to grab him. He tries to run into the house, most likely to have time to turn off the laptop. But they catch him. Investigators go inside and try to find Key's laptop. The laptop is in the bedroom. It is enabled and unlocked. The detectives got him. Alpha-02 is still connected to the server hosting AlphaBay. Investigators look through the laptop and find several passwords to the AlphaBay website and servers. The state of the arrested Canadian is $23 million. Plastic is confiscated by his luxury cars, houses, and millions of savings in cryptocurrency. Key's wife is charged with money laundering, and a week later, on July 12, 2007 year, Alexander Cazes dies. According to the official version, he committed suicide while in custody. The king of the dark web has gone down in history forever. The closure of AlphaBay is deliberately kept secret by the authorities for the time being. And then the platform shuts down. But none of the users have an answer to the question, why did this happen? Is it an exit scam or a hack? Did the administrators decide to stop their activities? One can only guess. Only law enforcement agencies know the answer. As expected, numerous users immediately emigrate to other Darknet markets, including Hans. For 4 weeks, the Dutch authorities have been monitoring thousands of criminals trading on the platform. All this time, investigators are collecting valuable evidence. And on the 20th of July, 2017 year, the Hans market is also closed forever. On the same day, the US Department of Justice announces the closure of AlphaBay haunts, which is a huge success for the entire law enforcement system. Today, the Ministry of Justice announced the closure of the AlphaBay Darknet market. This is the closure of the largest Darknet market in world history. The dark web itself is not a technology of evil intended only for criminals. We need places on the web where informants and journalists will feel relatively safe. And trading platforms like AlphaBay and the like are still part of the big picture. The global cat-and-mouse game between the administrators of such markets and law enforcement agencies is still far from over. The demand for drugs, weapons, counterfeit money, and malware is too high. It took relatively little time before Alpha Handsome Market was forgotten and users switched to other existing platforms. Several new markets have emerged that position themselves better than the previous leaders. For example, the Russian hider market at the peak of its development was twice as large as AlphaBay. But in 2021 year, it was also closed with the cooperation of the German and American authorities. And now the question arises: who will become the new king of the Darknet? One of the most promising contenders remains Snake. He relaunched AlphaBay in 2021 year and still manages this market to this day.